Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm here with Mr. Stan Cooke, who is running for Alabama State Auditor. He's agreed to come on and talk with me for a few minutes. Stan, how are you doing this morning?
Doing quite well. It's good to meet with you, and thank you for the chance to interview with you and share with you our campaign.
Hey, man, great to have you on. Hey, so you've been a fixture in Alabama politics for a while. Tell me a little bit about your background, some of the races you've been for some of the people who may not know.
Well, my first experience, we've always been Republicans.
Hmm.
My family was a Republican family in a Democrat county. Um, Voted for Eisenhower, voted for Nixon. Um, they voted for Ford. So they were always Republicans.
Hmm.
When I was in college, I had an opportunity offered to me to work in Ronald Reagan's first campaign. Um,
Ah,
Graduated high school early. I was 17 in 1978. When I was out of high school, went to college, and got involved in the early 80s when Reagan first started recruiting young college students to work in his campaign. Um, we I volunteered, uh, traveled to several states, uh, did whatever they asked me to do. A lot of fun, enjoyed it greatly. I learned several things from just listening to President Reagan when he would give his speeches, some of the facts that he would share. I wrote them down over the years, and I've tried to model those in my life. Um, Everybody has their favorite president. President Reagan is mine. I think he's the man that changed this country for the good and could show our nation how great we could actually be militarily, economically, and morally. And I miss that. I miss those days of the Reagan administration.
would you agree that he, more than, because he's really the president I can remember that more than, well, he's the first one I can remember, but he gave you, when he spoke, he gave you a sense of feeling that everything's going to be okay.
He did. He could communicate hope. He could communicate peace, stability. Um, I will not say he was an austere man, but when he walked into a room, he commanded attention, instant respect. Because I always say about President Reagan, the man and the message were one and the same. His life and his message were identical. You have a lot of politicians who will say many things, but their lifestyle doesn't match up to it. President Reagan wasn't that person. He was absolutely um, on target with everything that he did and everything that he said. I admire him greatly.
I love that time. Okay, so take us on a little further. He got you involved in politics, and
Worked with the Republican Party, start to know a lot of people in the counties and county leadership. Um, got involved in some political races. Um, Later on, I would get married in 1985, and then my wife's family was involved in Montgomery politics, so that got me ingrained even more. And then I became politically active in other people's campaigns that I thought were worthy of my energy and my time. And then one day I said, I can do better. I saw a candidate that I did not agree with. I checked out his vote and his voting record on many issues. We had a Republican congressman, and in 2010, he had voted with the Democrats so many times that his votes contributed to $1.7 trillion in Democrat policies, which would have been in the Bill Clinton administration. And that was a District 6 congressman that we had. So I decided to run against him. About that time, the Tea Party movement started, and I had a lot of support from the Tea Party, conservative Republicans, conservative Christians. and we worked the 6th district very hard. 40% of the vote. I still was beat handily by him, but he was a machine. And that's the
Yeah,
one thing. The one thing that, and that was Spencer Backus, by the way.
yeah. So I knew back
The
he was pretty good against an ingrained incumbent.
Yeah, but he was a machine. He had so many ties to the political interest in the district, and that taught me a lesson that it wasn't enough for me to get the message out just to the average person on the street. I had to convince business leadership of policies, plans, procedures that were Republican, conservative, constitutional, and I had to win them over as well. So that energized me even more for the next time I would run for office.
That was the first time you ran?
2010, I ran for Congress. That was the first time I ran.
Really? I don't know. Somehow in my mind, I guess as you get older, it seems like I thought you'd ran before that. I guess the name just remember your name so well. But yeah, I thought you'd ran for office before that. So what did you? So you learned from that race that you needed to go to the businesses instead of just not only just the people in the businesses together, and make those type of relationships.
Well, my vision, as a young Republican, in 2010, as I grew, I still had a skewed vision that if we could just reach the common man and woman on the street, that we could win an election. But
yeah.
Let me show you how it works. So I was gaining on the congressman. My poll numbers were coming up. I was working very hard, doing every TV and radio interview that I could do. But a week before the election, the congressman sent a letter out to every county commission, every mayor, every town council, every senior adult center, and reminded them how he voted for money to build their senior citizens center, their fire departments, their police departments, their city halls. He had done these favors for them. So he wanted them to vote for him. Well, that worked very, very well. So then I realized that I had to get to those same people and not neglect them, and just share with them my message. So that taught me one more lesson. Politics needs money, and you have to have a lot of money to win a congressional seat, and you have to have a lot of money to run a statewide election. And that's what I'm doing now. I do more fundraising than I do speaking. So money is the life's milk of politics, and that was the first lesson that I learned in 2010.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. And when we cut tape, there's something I want to tell you again, touch on. But anyway, so after that election right there, did you go back to work for the Republican Party, or did you have your eyes focused on another race, or what Stan Cooke have in mind then?
Well, after 2010, I did want to run again. The next election was 2012, and there was a great debate. If I have my time frame right, in 2012, and then that's when Gary Palmer and Scott Beeson, Paul DeMarco, several other people all were in the race, and I was debating on getting into that race because now it was going to be an open seat, and prayed quite a bit, and I should have gotten into that race, but there was like 7 people, and some of those men were millionaires.
David Standridge, he was a probate county in Blount County at that time. I think he was in that race. Probate judge.
And you had a lawyer from Birmingham, and they were getting the BCA support, the Alpha support. I wasn't drawing any attention, and we know how that race turned out. Gary Palmer won. And then 2014, I decided to get back into politics, and I ran for lieutenant governor, and came very, very close in my campaign against Kay Ivey. If
Let
we
me,
had,
what made you decide to challenge an incumbent lieutenant governor? Because I remember when I was reading about when Jared Beasley challenged George Wallace. Was something was there a policy issue or just something?
Kay Ivey is a former Democrat.
Okay.
That was strike number one. There were other issues about her that I did not like, tied to some very liberal organizations.
Okay.
There were some other issues that I knew about Miss Ivy that energized me to run, but it bothered me that a former AEA Democrat that was heavily supported by every Democrat organization in the state was running as a Republican,
Yeah.
and and I didn't agree with that. I felt like we could do better. I knew we could do better, and I feel like if you're going to be a Republican, um, have Republican values and let those values be demonstrated. Now, I believe in conversion growth in the Republican Party. But I believe, even to this day, I believe that Kay Ivey is a rhino. I don't believe she's a real Republican. And last year we had the proof of that, shutting down the schools, shutting down churches, shutting down small businesses. I think she hid behind the state health director, and she let him make all the decisions. If Miss Ivy was going to have real leadership, she should have called the House and the Senate into special session and let them vote on COVID policies. But we had no representative government. We are a republic, so she should have called a special session, let the House and Senate debate it, present her plan, but none of that happened, and the people did not have a voice in what happened in 2020, and that's some of the things that I fought against when I ran against her in 2014.
You think, and because I've been following her now, and that when I see Governor Ivy, I just don't think she's fit for the job. I mean, she looks sick. She doesn't like she has the energy, and mentally, I mean, she still seems okay, but it just doesn't seem like somebody that can put in the time and effort that we need to help move this state forward.
We need someone that will aggressively pursue a policy to make the state of Alabama recession proof. We need to recruit business to this state that will complement the various regions of our state economically. We also need someone that will look at what we currently have and how do we make it better. Here we have the same group of people in Montgomery running state government, and we're last in everything. That's been the story for 20 years, and nothing has changed. But they keep telling you one more election cycle and they'll make it better, but they haven't. So
I'm sorry to put you out there, but something I asked a candidate the other night. We're controlled by Republicans in governor, legislature. How come we can't get anything done? I mean, it's everything fails. I mean, they spent, which in all means I'm all for this, but it seemed like they spent 3 months a couple years ago working on an transgender athlete bill. They should have got passed in 30 seconds, and we didn't hardly get anything passed, and it was tied up in that. I mean, it seems like that we can never get something up there that can help the state. I don't know what your position is on lottery, but why are they not allowed to vote on that?
I think the Senate and the House should vote on the lottery. I don't think the people should be voting on the lottery. We're not a democracy. We are a republic, a representative republic. Democracy is mob rule. We should separate the lottery issue from the casino gaming issue and vote on those as two separate bills, two pieces of legislation. There are people who have great political interest in seeing some of those things passed or voted against. Um, the issues that we have are lobbyist and political action committees controlling politicians with their vote. That's why we can't get anything accomplished. We're
Let me.
going to have to.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
We need some men and women with a backbone who will go to Montgomery, get elected, and do the right thing, irregardless of the outcome 4 years later.
Okay, let me ask you a question like this here, and maybe a tough question for some Republicans, but I've seen more Republicans start opening up to the idea. Eventually, it's going to happen. Why don't we regulate it as far as like you would buying alcohol and legalize and tax marijuana? I mean, I was reading that Colorado, they're getting like $11 or $12 billion a year in tax revenue. I mean, they can go anywhere, and I don't smoke marijuana. I wouldn't go buy it, but I know plenty of people who do, and those are not the type of those are not the type of people that are going to go rob the store. They've already proved the medical benefits you can get from the CBD oil. I mean, why don't we move ahead and do that?
Well, number one, I think let's look at the big picture and work down. Alabama is a conservative, still Christian state. There's a lot of influence from church denominations and Christian organizations not to vote for marijuana and recreational use. Now, the same people don't have a problem, which I think is great, with the oil that is produced to help people who have autism, seizures, other disorders that would cause them to have health issues. I'm all in favor for that. I really am. But then I find it hypocritical for people to be against, and this is more of a libertarian issue and not a Republican issue. But to be against marijuana, but be pro alcohol sale.
Yeah, I don't.
That boggles my mind. Now, if you want to look at it from an economic point of view, our financial issues will not be solved by a marijuana use bill. If they're going to look at it only from a financial supply to the state tax base, it will contribute, but it's not going to solve our problem. We are a welfare state. We receive more money from the federal government than we pay in.
I believe that I was told that during the Obama administration, for every dollar that we sent, they sent us $4 back.
That's close. That's very accurate. I tell you a good way to find out: when you drive down the interstate and you see a construction project taking place, you'll see on the top line how much money the federal government contributed to that project, and on the bottom line what the state revenue contributed. So we could not have the interstates, the infrastructure, the highways that we have without federal dollars coming into Alabama. We've got to find a way to grow beyond that problem. Once we become what I call recession proof, economically viable, that we can take care of ourselves, then we can be cutting the strings to the federal government, not having to bend to federal mandates. And then when the rest of the country is falling into a recession, Alabama should be able to stand on its own. I think that's possible. I don't think that's a pie in the sky dream. I think we can work to that end.
Sam, I know it's possible because when I started getting back in this stuff, I've got an inquisitive mind, and I start, I don't want to say it. Well, I've started investigating stuff, and I'm looking here at the first round of COVID money. There's $1 million a woman stole in Mobile. Counties was allocated $250 million. 30% of it got spent. $800 trillion. There's missing money. Then all of a sudden I can't find the money for these prisons. And now we're going to take this COVID money. And when I look and I start going down through this, not just only statewide, but like in Birmingham, I seen the other day somebody just stole another $500,000 from the parking authority. I mean, there's so much money that's being stolen. maybe I should say stolen, but reallocated somewhere that nobody's been held accountable for.
Well, and let me show you what the COVID money should have done.
Yeah.
We can debate all day long whether it was right or wrong for Congress to be giving out trillions of dollars of COVID money. But they did, and now we live in that world of reality. We have so many rural hospitals and rural clinics that have been closed over the last 20 years because the Medicaid money was not expanded to focus on the rural community. Now, counties like Jefferson and Shelby and Mobile and Baldwin and Morgan and Limestone and Madison, they are economically viable and they can take care of themselves. They don't need to see a Medicaid dollar expanded.
UAB got $350 million. And that's one thing, they're not hurting, okay?
No, they're not.
And I'm not catch you off, but that's one thing I always want to know. We got rural hospitals closed and people can't get asset, and you give the money to UAB. I think they can make it.
But you go to Limestone, you go to Lamar, Marion, Fett, Walker, Winston, Green, Hale, Bibb. You go to some of those counties. The people who had COVID had to go to Tuscaloosa, UAB, or up into Huntsville to go to the hospital, or drive over to Mississippi, when we could have used that COVID money to reopen those hospitals and clinics and treat those patients in their county. But you see, that is a lack of vision. It wasn't a lack of money. The money was there. That's a lack of vision. That's a lack of leadership. And that's why Montgomery needs to change.
That was my question then. And I'm sure 99% of the Alabama voter has not looked at where that money was allocated. I have. I've looked at one of them, $40 million emergency education relief fund for the governor. Like, what is that? Then I look at overtime pay for teachers. Wait a second, you've got a year off, and all 4 teachers are getting paid well. You've got a year off for sitting at home, and now you're getting paid. Millions of dollars went to nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations, and I'm not going against churches or anything like that. But and I'm looking at all money going to universities, money going to schools, and I'm thinking, why is this money being sent to schools and universities when it should have been sending to some of these people that needed money to help them get by?
Why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID healthcare money to build a prison?
I would love to know that answer.
That was a crime. That is a crime. We have counties who are suffering all across this state. We probably only have 12 to 14 counties who can economically maintain themselves. But we have rural clinics and rural hospitals that have closed, that if we'd have used the COVID money in a wise fashion, we could have saved lives. People could have been treated quickly. They would not have to drive to Mississippi or Tennessee or to Georgia or Florida to find a hospital to be admitted to. But we do not have true leadership in some of our offices in Montgomery. That's why I'm running. I want to make a difference. I want to bring a true conservative Republican voice to the halls of the Capitol in Montgomery, Alabama.
Well, who has that is influence to get them to direct all this money? Because I sent all this money going to schools and colleges, and I'm like, you just wasted this money. And then I seen that we still had $800 million that they hadn't spent, that they was about to lose, and I'm like, what are you guys thinking down there?
Well, there's 2 ways, and I'm aggressive, and I fight for what I believe, but I also believe that you build relationships, and I also think you go into a conversation and you don't just complain, or you don't just list a problem, but you show the problem and you give the Montgomery politician a list of solutions and how that solution would be good for the state. I am never going to come to you and bring to you a problem without bringing to you an answer. And that's the problem we have right now. It's real easy to be negative. It's real easy to be combative. We can beat up the governor, the lieutenant governor, the House, the Senate, but let's try to find a way to positively push the state forward by offering an answer that solves the problem. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the people of this state that get served. And it's not about who voted on what bill, who sponsored a bill. It's did the people of this state come out better at the end of the day? And I think that's my approach to government, is a positive solution um, that is progressive, not in the liberal definition of being progressive, but progressive in moving this state forward and the people of this state being blessed and being served by state government.
I'm glad you said the word liberal. I wanted to ask you about a few things now, just opinions on things. Constitutional carry. I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I love my weapons. So how do you feel about that?
I am for constitutional carry, but I think we're debating the wrong issue. Let me give you some ideas. The Constitution says we have the right to keep and bear arms, and that right should never be infringed. And we're talking about permits being purchased at the sheriff's office. That's where this is being focused. Why should I have to have a permit to carry a handgun? Okay. But I think the real problem that we need to be discussing in the state of Alabama is, how do we screen an individual that wants to buy a firearm? Do we know that they're a legal resident? Sincerely. Do we know that they have mental disorders? Do we sell an AR-15 to someone who has severe autism, that is a former violent criminal? Do we sell an AR-15 to a 6-year-old? Because the Constitution doesn't say anything about age, does it?
No, it does not.
It says an American citizen has a right to keep and bear arms. So do we give an 8-year-old a .38 Smith & Wesson for a Christmas present and tell him go out in the yard and play with it? Somewhere there has to be a common sense conversation about who we sell these weapons to. We require you to be 16 to have a driver's license. You're so old to be in the military. You can only be so old to drink and smoke. I don't have a problem at all with constitutional carry. I'm 100% for it. But I do have a problem that we're not screening psychiatric patients, PTSD individuals that are on a list already. We're not screening them for firearm sales. And I don't think a person that has been diagnosed with schizophrenia and they're bipolar and they're on medications, I don't think they should be able to go in and buy a handgun. That's just a personal opinion.
Talk about psychiatric problems. Yeah, I see what you talking about. But I have a mild case of anxiety, where I get a set of time. I don't think somebody who like that should have to be prevented from getting a firearm because they have anxiety problems and need to rest at night. I see what you meant though about the psychiatric problems. We don't want somebody in there that's violent PTSD thoughts that can shoot up a school over nothing.
And that's what's happened many times. The world famous American sniper, Chris Kyle, was killed by a man that had been diagnosed with PTSD and was on severe medications for it. And that's how Chris Kyle dies. I know that they were trying to do a good thing for him. So I think we're having a good conversation about constitutional carry, which needs to happen. But I think we're having the wrong conversation because it is the people who are buying firearms and we have no database to say this person was in the mental institution for 15 years and they slip through the cracks and they get out and now they've bought an assault shotgun.
And I think what you said about one thing about, I was in a Facebook forum the other day, was people argue about, the Oswald's innocent, Oswald's guilty, and one guy makes some kind of dumb question about, well, where do you get the firearm or the hand ammunition? And I said, look, buddy, I said, and I own an AR-15. I'm a gun collector. I keep them locked away. I said, look, buddy, I walked into a store the other day. I said, I bought, rounds for a clip. I paid cash. They didn't ask for an ID. They didn't receipt. There was no records. I said, do you think if I was a presidential assassin, he'd remember me, 2 weeks later? I said, there's no way of keeping up with this and monitoring. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to say I don't want the government monitoring our everyday lives, but I think there needs to be, like what you said, we need to watch out who is getting firearms, because officer told me about guys like you I'm not worried about as the firearm. I'm probably, to tell you this story real quick, I'm probably the only guy that that's ever went through Mountain Brook and didn't get a ticket. I got stopped there.
Well, let's look at the Bill of Rights real quick. The reason why the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment, was written was because a man like Alexander Hamilton took his extreme wealth to manufacture firearms, cannons, and ammunition himself. He did that. He set up his own factory, and many other people did the same. Right now, if you or I want to build our own rifle or shotgun, it's illegal. The federal government has regulated us. I should have the privilege and the right to build my own 308, to set up my own factory. The right to keep and bear arms is being infringed, and we have to solve that problem. Again, I stress, I'm for constitutional carry, but I have a concern. Does a 6-year-old have a right to constitutional carry a 45 Colt?
It's like this. This is the type of answers that we need coming from people that's running for office. But let me tell you, so he pulls me over and he said, and asked for my ID, and I said, well, this time, officer, I need to inform you that I have a concealed carry license and a pistol on me. He said, where is it at? I said, my right jacket pocket. He said, okay, wallet. And I said, it's in my left jacket pocket. He said, okay, reach for your wallet. And I reached, I could touch I felt the butt of the gun. I said, I think I've got it mixed and it's on the other side. And I said, I'm not sure. I said, I said, I don't want you to shoot me. And he said, well, I don't want to get shot either. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I promise I won't take mine out if you don't take yours out. And he started laughing. And he said, why don't you just give me your information? So I gave my information and I came back and he told me the place I was looking for and let me go on the street. But that's the whole time I got out of that. Okay. Another one I want to jump into this driving me crazy. And I don't know where this has popped up at over the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years, but I had to Google to find these terms up, what cis man and gender fluid and gender neutral. When did it become that a man is a woman and you can choose, what you identify with? Well, in that case, I identify with a 65-year-old retired banker and I want my pension. I mean, this is not biologically normal. I don't care what anybody says. If you're born with male parts, you're a male. If you're born with female parts, you're female. And I just can't go along with getting behind any of this.
What you are witnessing is a collapse in the American society, a collapse in the American culture. I begin blaming that on the Christian church. When the Christian church became more of a business than it was a ministry, and they watered down the message to have a larger crowd, that preaching became more psychology, praise and worship became more entertainment, fog machines, smoke machines took the place of the anointing of the Holy Spirit, and the message was watered down, then we no longer condemn sin. We no longer condemn evil, darkness. And when we don't do that, we forget that the power of this country has always been in the pulpits of our churches. And people think then that it's okay to be transgendered. Little Johnny wants to wear a dress to school. Sally wants to play on the football team. And then there's no one in society that is safeguarding the morality of our country. I think that's where I lay the original blame for all this, is the lack of strong conservative preaching in our pulpits. So then that affects the school teacher that listens to the sermon, the pastor affects the businessman, he affects the politician. Then the parents are depending on the school system to raise their children. The parents then think that I can take little Johnny to church for 1 hour on Sunday and fix all the problems that he learned the other 6 days of the week. We have a complete moral breakdown in the morality of this country.
There was a parent that it was Facebook arguing about this, because I'm getting angry about it, because I've got, hearing about drag queen teaching children, if you want to go to a drag show when you're 18 years old and watch it, that's fine. I don't think drag queens should be teaching or reading to our kids. That storybook hour out there. But this guy anyway was on a Facebook thing, and he told me, he said, you don't understand what it's like to raise a gender fluid child. I said, that right there, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Yes. That's exactly what I'm talking. I don't even know what gender fluid is. Somebody tell me, says, you identify as neither a man or a woman. I said, what happened to this? And I've watched that men in the society today that, and I'm 45 years old, but from when I look at my father's generation, my grandfather's generation, to me, it's like men have lost their way than what they were 50 years ago. And maybe that's part of it too.
Let me give you two solutions. Because I'm complaining, but I told you I wanted to give a positive solution that solves the problem. So here's the first solution. We do away with the Department of Education.
Yes.
All education money stays in the state of Alabama. It is disseminated to the counties, then disseminated to the local school board. The local school board should have the right to pick the textbook and the curriculum that is going to be taught in their school system. If education was driven down to the lowest common denominator, the local school board, to allow them to pick curriculum, the principal, the superintendent, the Board of Education, and there were no federal dollars tied to it, then we would see a vast turnaround in the education system and how we educate our children. The beginning of prayer being dismissed out of schools, the 10 Commandments off the wall, the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, opening the school day with a prayer, all started when the Department of Education injected itself into local education. We need to destroy the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and return that education dollar to the local level. That is a solution that will work. And then I think another thing that we need to do, I just fall back. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but I want to make the statement in its completion. I travel to Israel quite a bit. When their students get to 18, no matter if they are geniuses and want to become rocket scientists and engineers and chemists and surgeons, they have to serve at least 2 years in the Israeli military.
I love it.
While they are in the Israeli military, boys and girls, they learn pride in their national heritage. The pledge to their country, the pledge to their flag, Every Israeli student after 18, they go to Masada. They learn about the Roman occupation, what it means to be a Jew, dispersed around the world, how to fight for your freedom. They have a national sense of pride instilled in them that after they back to college and go back into society, they are patriots, every single one of them. I would not be against seeing our high school students immediately go into the military of this country, serve in some capacity. I do not believe that women belong on the battlefield, and I don't want to see a girl fighting in China or Russia, but they can serve in some capacity that will help the war effort. But but in those 2 years or 3 years that they would serve, they would get a GI Bill. They would learn national pride. They would have patriotism instilled that they possibly missed in high school.
You can also actually get a trade through the MOS that you can, you don't have to go to a school. You go to that, you get a free trade, 3 years on.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of technical trades, agricultural trades, things that they can learn. We're missing it. I will show you another thing that really bothers me about our country. We claim to be the greatest country on the nation, in the world, greatest country in the world. When an Israeli student graduates from high school, they speak Hebrew, they speak English, and they pick up a third language, and they speak 3 languages proficiently by the time they're 18.
Wow.
When an American student graduates from high school, they can hardly speak English appropriately or write a sentence that is grammatically correct. We have a problem. We're focusing on the wrong thing.
And he won't even care me. He won't care me to use this name. I think the world of Ron. He's just a good old boy up there from Fort Payne, and he was talking about the other day about, we're spending $14,000 to put a marijuana guy in jail and $4,000 to educate our children. We need to get our priorities straight. One thing I want to say though is our military, they need to get back to the way they used to train people, because when I went in, it ain't nothing like it was today. I mean, they did away with something called, they call it shark attack, where you got off and you had 4 or 5 drills in your face and yelling at you and trying to make you mentally tougher. They're not allowed to do that anymore, and I think that's a huge mistake, because part of military is learning discipline, learning mental toughness, getting in physical shape, and we're getting away from that. I don't know if it's because of our cancel culture that's going on, but we need to get back to getting people ready to be prepared to go to war. Education, you mentioned something great there, and I see this stuff popping up all the time, and somebody said the critical race theory is so racist that Governor Ivey won't allow it to be taught. And I said, look, a theory is a theory. I can say that I theorize that the moon is made of cheese. It doesn't mean it's true. I said, so, what is this critical race theory that's now pushed so hard in schools? I've not even took time to really study it that much.
Critical race theory is a highbrowed attempt to blame white people for being white.
Yeah, okay.
that we are the problem around the world, that white culture through Christianity has formed the policies of every nation in the world. Critical race theory blames us for the problems of every minority. And when I say us, I mean white people, white individuals like myself. It still goes back to the old black and white racial tension issues, that no one would be racist today, and this is my opinion, no one would be racist today if the past generation did not teach them how to be racist. It is embedded, it is taught, it is learned, It is a mindset, a mentality, a behavior pattern that is embedded from one generation to the other. Critical race theory, all it does is blame white Americans for everybody else's problems. And I totally reject it. I think the principles of Christ and the scripture, loving your neighbor as yourself, that we are Americans. We're not black, we're not white. And if you want to know the truth, we're all the same race. Skin color has nothing to do with genetics and the DNA of who we are as a people. We're all human beings. We all descended from Adam. We all came from Noah. We're all brothers and sisters globally. My skin color does not separate me from another person. And you're my brother, you're my sister, and that's the way I treat you and hope you treat me.
This thing, which you talking, when we're talking about the critical race theory of all white people are bad. You know, I'm seeing it spill over with white people saying the same thing. And I'm in a Civil War group that I love, but I've told people straight up, you're not going to guilt me into being white. If you think you're going to get apologies from me for being white, and there's been such a revisionism about the qualities of General Lee as a commander, and I said, look, you're not going to shame me that my ancestors fought for the Confederacy. And I'm not going to get into stuff like, fighting over slavery. I don't argue about that because, but anyway, you said you're not going to shame me for that. I said, I have 2 paintings of General Lee hanging, and I have a Confederate battle flag, and it's just part of my love of history. But I'm not going to be ashamed or deny or that I'm white or that my family took place of that. And they're trying to rewrite history by taking down monuments. I seen when they took down the monument of Thomas Jefferson because he was a slaveholder. Where do we stop next? George Washington?
There's always going to be a group of people that have an agenda that they attack the symbolism of what they think is wrong. They can't murder all of the people that they dislike. So they attack the symbolisms, the institutions, the colleges, the statues. It is not going to solve anything. It will never solve anything because history is history. I could tell my history, and I did one day to a large group of black pastors. I had a black pastor to call me out, and he said, were your ancestors slave owners? And the host pastor cringed when he said that. He just absolutely said, like he wished he did not ask that question. But I was giving my political speech, and I thought, well, that's a fair question, but you're going to get a very long-winded answer. My ancestors are Jews that were captured by Roman soldiers who were dragged across Europe and that were eventually landed in England. They went to Scotland and to Ireland, and when the Romans abandoned them, they left them behind. So my original ancestors, who I am genetically Jewish by DNA, were slaves. The Bible records them as being slaves over and over again. So here's my answer to your question. My ancestors found a way to overcome their bondage and their slavery, to make themselves needed in society, to educate themselves. And I'm a Christian with Jewish ancestry, but the drive and the motivation in me is not to be a victim, but to be the victor. So I can't let my past define me, but I can let my past motivate me to become something better. So whether my ancestors in the past owned slaves or not is immaterial. It's what you decide to do with your future today to make yourself a better person, a better American, a better Christian. And I go back to we're having the wrong conversation about these issues because my ancestors are documented in the scripture as being slaves first in Egypt. So what do we tell the world? Poor, pitiful me, give me a handout, give me some money. Do I sue Egypt? Do I sue the Syrians, the Babylonians, the Greek, the Persians, the Romans, because they all captivated my ancestors? No, I take my life, I take my responsibility, and I become a better man.
Something real quick. I said, well, we're taking this stuff out. I said, well, what are we going to do next? Are we going to take King David out of the Bible? I said, he was a slave owner. I said, he was a man after God's own heart. Are we going to strip him out of it? I mean,
It's just people that want to argue. They do nothing productive. They just want to argue.
Yeah, in this, it just seems like it's getting worse. I mean, I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not going to apologize for me being white. That's what I said. And I don't understand. If you can tell me where I can go buy some white privilege at, I'm going to put it on my credit card today, because I'm still waiting for my white privilege, and I've not received it in the mail yet. These terms just keep popping up all the time: systematic racism and white privilege, and it's almost trying to cause white people for ills of all society, and the liberal agenda is just not going to stop until they do that.
Well, to go back to your original question, the liberal, I'll show you how it works. Global cooling did not work in the 60s. Global warming did not work in the last 20 years. So now it's changed to climate change.
I said that just like the other day.
Now what we're facing is white privilege didn't work to change our political agenda. So now we're going to teach critical race theory. They just keep changing the name for the same goal. And what we have to do is just work to make America a better country, defeat these people at the polls, at the ballot box. I was very disappointed with a Republican retired politician the other day. He said, we win elections to force our will on those that we defeat.
No, I don't. No.
And if I told you who that person was, it would just shock you. We win elections to protect and defend the Constitution, to make America the shining light on the hill, to make Alabama the best state it can be for the citizens of this state. That's why we should be motivated to win elections. I am not a political zealot. I'm not a person who wants to crush my opponents to climb the political ladder. I'm not a recycled politician. I don't need a job. I want the job I'm running for state auditor, but I'm not a recycled politician that needs a job to have a payday. I care about this state. I care about Alabama. I care about our image, our education, our students. I know it takes money to make things work, to pave our streets, to rebuild our infrastructure, and we have got to find positive ways to solve these problems. You're going to find me as a person who's going to be an answer man. Let's find an answer to help this state. I'm not going to be an antagonist, an intentional advocate for nothing but arguing all the time or grandstanding on TV. I want to find positive, productive solutions for our state.
What's Stan Cooke's first act when he walks in on day one? He walks into his office.
Evaluate the people who are there. See who is the talented workers. Understand better how the office works, not from a logistical point of view, but how the people are doing their job. And then start finding out what's wrong. Why is the office in the position that it's in? The state auditor's office is in the worst position it's been in 8 years. So how do we improve it? How do we rebuild a relationship between that constitutional office and the state legislature? How do we work together with all the other constitutional officers to make the state better? And then do not rely on government ideas to solve these problems, but look at private business, private industry. The state auditor's office is more inventory control. So how do we control the inventory? How do we keep track of what we own? And one of the things I want to do is look at everything that we own in this state and see would we be better off expense-wise and legally if we were leasing that product. And give you a reason why. Let's say an office in Huntsville, a branch of government, wants to purchase a copying machine, multiple thousands of dollars. All right, if they buy it, do we have anyone in the area trained to repair that machine, to service that machine, to buy the toner, to clean it? How much more are we spending on an employee that requires Social Security and health care and benefits to take care of a piece of equipment that we bought? And then if someone steals that machine, the state auditor is now required to track it down and hopefully use the system of government to prosecute the theft and the thief. If we
Sam,
least
studying this job, because you seem like you know the solutions and where to tackle this. I mean, it seems like I'm in studying this.
Yeah, I have. If we lease that same copy machine, it's a monthly expense, but some other company is servicing the machine, supplying the toner, the ink, whatever, and we're not paying for that employee out of the state funds. We're not paying for the supplies that's under the service contract. And if that machine is damaged or broken, that's going to be between that company and that department head, and the state auditor doesn't have to be involved unless the company calls me. There's a level of responsibility that shifts, and the cost to the state goes down, and we can actually save the taxpayer a lot of dollars by reviewing everything that we bought compared to can we lease some of these things and come out better economically.
But listening to you, I mean, trying to explain the way you're giving your answers, you come across as someone who is a decision maker and who knows how to get things done. I mean, that's just how it's striking me, that you're going to go in there, you're going to look at this right here, this is how it's going to be done. Your aides, I don't think that's popular. This is how it's going to do it. You make your decision based on what you think is best, and you go with it. I mean, that's how you strike me. You can tell me if I'm wrong on it, but I can see a lot of leadership abilities just by the way you're speaking to me today.
Well, I have 19 years in what I call secular business, immediate business systems, Fisher Scientific, Medical Laboratory Associates. I was the buyer, the warehouse manager, inventory control manager. I know how business works, hiring and firing employees, how to make payroll. I currently pastor a church. I'm a district bishop in the state of Alabama. I have a world missions organization that is in Israel. My smallest budget of all three of those is larger than the state auditor's budget. I have more employees under my control, under my leadership, than the state auditor has, 3 times as many. My missions budget is in the millions of dollars, and it goes off perfectly. Every dime's accounted for. Here's the difference between me and the state government. The state government taxes you to operate that department. I depend on donations, and we have to produce We have to show goodwill. We have to be transparent. We have to show all of the donors where the money comes from. In state government, nobody ever asked that question. So we want to be transparent. We want to bring integrity and accountability to the state auditor's office. We want to give Alabama a level of honesty that they've never seen before. And we want to work with the Senate and the House to increase the state auditor's budget so it can operate according to the demands of the Constitution. But then let's start saving the taxpayers money by implementing policies that will reduce expenditures across the state.
Yeah, because I want to know why that last summer my power bill was $38 a month in the summertime. Now it's $290 last month, and I hardly run any heat. I can't get anybody to the Public Service Commission which to answer me, and Miss Commissioner Kavanaugh claims that she's saving the state $1 million a year and going back into the budget fund. Well, why can't we do that to try to reduce that $1 million spread out on people's electricity bills?
We could reduce every bit of this. There's a way to cut. There's a way to cut the budget. If the governor could just say, I want a 5% reduction this year, find a way to cut 5% of your expenditures this year. But nobody ever asked that question. We could find a way to cut the red tape through the state auditor's office to reduce state expenditures. I'll show you another way that the state auditor can actually save the state money, is being involved in the initial legislative process. Let's say a bill is presented, and within that bill, several products are going to be purchased. Money is designated for those projects. So the state auditor, the moment that bill becomes law, should track those products to see, A, were they actually purchased? B, did we spend the money that we said that we were going to spend on them, or did we spend more? And where are those products located? Are they missing? Are they abused? Are they stolen? We have to be involved in the entire process of government, not just taking inventory of a product that sits in someone's office.
Since I got into this, I guess, aspiring amateur independent journalist, what he would say. One thing I've noticed, people who are running for office are glad to talk to me. If you're an incumbent, they will not answer any questions from me. Now, except for one of your opponents who's current in office. I enjoyed talking to him. He answered questions for me. Very nice man. But other than him, no incumbent will talk to me. They will not answer any questions. They don't want anything to say to me. And I'm like, what are you scared of me for, man? If you're scared to answer and I don't think I'm asking. It's not like I'm not bulldogging you. I mean, I'm just asking you questions that I think that the voters should know, that have a right to know.
They should.
I don't think, I think I've asked I don't think I've asked, too tough questions. I think these questions are legitimate questions that voters are entitled to know to the people that they send to Montgomery. I mean, because they are their servant. We got caught off track a while ago because I wanted to know about, after the loss to Governor Ivey, elected the governor's race, what did you do next for the next cycles?
Okay, in the middle of that campaign on April the 28th of 2014, our church was blown away by a tornado. I kept running in the race. Again, I lost in a close race to Governor Ivey.
What's the vote count?
Lieutenant. Wish I could tell you. I just remember it was close. But what I spent 2014, 15, and 16 doing is rebuilding a church, a Sunday school department, keeping my staff together, raising funds. We actually held church under a tent up until they got a portion of the building completed. So I was focused on that, focused on world missions. traveling back and forth to Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Tiberias, Germany, France, England. So I stayed very busy with the missions programs, heavily involved in archaeology as a pastime of mine in the Middle East, working on some projects for the city of David. But at the same time, come back home and let's work on Republican policy. I'm a firm believer that everything that is right with the Republican Party can solve everything that is wrong with the state of Alabama if we will stand true to our convictions and to our conservative values. So I try to inject that message to every politician. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. 14 was the last race you participated in besides this one?
14 was the last race. Well, no, I tell you, that was the lieutenant governor's race. The last race that I was in was in 2018, and I lost to Jim Ziegler.
Okay, now I remember. I remember that. I remember that race now.
I was very concerned then about how the state auditor's office was being run, and that's why I'm running for this office again. That the auditor's office has diminished in its effectiveness in state government, and I want to restore that. I think we can. I think we can do it quickly, very quickly.
Got a good one for you. All right, Stan. So here I am. I'm your average Alabama voter out there. I've kept up with the race a little bit. Undecided. I'm walking in there and I get my ballot. I come down the state auditor's race. What is the last thing you want that voter to remember about Stan Cooke before they mark that ballot?
I want them to know that I'm very concerned about protecting their tax dollars, bringing accountability to the office, that any citizen in Alabama can call that department and say, where did this money go? How was it spent? Do we still have the property that we purchased? That the state auditor's office is actually functioning like the Constitution details it to function. That I'm going to do that job. I'm not going to be grandstanding or being involved in other issues that I'm not supposed to be involved in. I'm going to stay in my lane and I'm going to do the state auditor's job. And at the end of the day, you will be proud that you voted for me. Integrity, honesty, accountability, and transparency, those are not just words. That's a lifestyle. That is a mentality. I'll bring that to that office, and I will be accessible to the people, and I will try to help the state of Alabama grow, prosper, so that everybody in this state can have a better life and a better quality of life. That's what I want them to know. Well,
Stan, I think that's all the questions I've got for you. Remember, when we cut, I want to talk to you for just a few more minutes. This has been a great interview. You gave me a lot of great answers that I think the voters will love to hear. You seem like you know what's going on as far as state government. I was very impressed. You didn't miss a beat on a lot of things. When I asked you a question, you immediately knew the answer, solutions, or at least try to. So, good luck in this race, and and we'll talk soon, and maybe come back on week before the race and give you another chance to talk. I've also, I'll tell you when we cut this for just a minute, but anyway, again, I want to thank you again, Stan.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Cut recording here.